Now, as we've talked about many times here on the show, and I'm sure all the listeners have experienced, life has a funny way of throwing us curveballs. A recent survey about Edward Jones found that about half of today's retirees have encountered disruptions they weren't planning for, and one of them is the sudden need to quit the workforce due to health issues, job loss, family responsibilities, whatever the reason. How do you factor unexpected retirement into a financial plan?
I really like this topic, Chris. I think it's something that we talked briefly about on a past show when Scott and I were discussing. One of the major factors that somebody gets forced into early retirement is because of a healthcare related, crisis, either for themselves personally or, maybe for a spouse. And so they were thinking the plan looked good. They were going to retire and maybe 5 years later, but all of a sudden now they're at this situation that's like, whoa. So if you're listening to the show, maybe you've done some planning, maybe you have a solid plan in place, maybe you know exactly when you want to retire, but if you haven't looked at what does it look like if something disrupts what those plans are, I would highly encourage you to have us run a Monte Carlo analysis for you. And what we can do is we can move the needle. So if your retirement age, your goal was say age 65, let's just move the needle and let's see what it looks like if it happens to turn out to be 58, or what happens if it's 60 or 62. And then from there, what it allows you to do is start to have a game plan in place that, heaven forbid there's an economic downturn or something happens, you know what the decisions are that you're going to make ahead of time, as well as you know what the probability of success is. One of the things that I would tell people is for those folks that are, within 5 years of retirement time, to me, I think it's important to keep 3 to 5 years worth of income needs in non-market risk investments. If you think about it, one of the reasons that this disruption could happen is an unexpected economic downturn. And, in an economic downturn, that might be the reason why the company has to let you go when they're cutting the workforce. And what it also might mean is if the economy's in the downturn, it most likely means the market's in the downturn. So here you are in a situation, you lost your job unexpectedly, the market's in the tanks, and you need money to live off of. Now you're in a terrible situation if you're forced to sell off your investments at a loss. That's why for those folks that are, again, within 5 years of retirement time, to have 3 to 5 years worth of income. Heck, that advice is good advice, I think, at any age. I would even tell my 20-year-old son to have at least 6 months worth of living expenses saved up. So if he has some type of disruption in his job, he doesn't have to call dear old dad and say, hey, Dad, can you bail me out and pay my mortgage or my car payment, my expenses, have that in place. The other thing that we have talked a lot about on this show is to avoid the crisis situation is work towards becoming debt free. If you can be debt free, you can really be kind of in control of your overall financial situation. Much better option, I think, by being debt free. A couple of pointers that I would give.
Yeah, I agree. I think you hit a lot of them on the head. The one thing that I would think that would benefit our clients and potential retirees is frequent checkups with your financial advisor. That comes to mind because that's really what we do almost every time we meet with our clients, what's generally, at least on an annual basis, generally 2 to 3 times a year, we're having those conversations, we're stress testing their portfolio for those situations that are unexpected. In fact, that's probably the most important reason why you have a financial plan, is not to just detail out all of the income and expenses and say, okay, now we're done. No, the actual value from having a financial plan comes into being able to, on the fly, within minutes, assess the probability of something like an unexpected illness happening. So the biggest takeaway, I think, is having frequent communication with a financial advisor, checking in to see on a regular basis how you're doing, how are you feeling, how is work, are things becoming to a point where you just can't take it anymore, and we might need to start adjusting the financial plan to show you retiring a little earlier. I've had that situation. I'm fortunate enough to work with a lot of first responders. I have a lot of GM or automotive workers and people that are on their feet a lot, jumping in and out of trucks and just have worked their whole life. And working longer is not an option. And sometimes in those careers, your body starts to deteriorate a little bit. And so having those conversations is important because I'm able to gauge how close we are to retirement. I had a client that just came in, or she frequently comes in and says, I can't take it anymore. I'm ready to retire. What do I need to do? And so we've got a contingency plan if she has to retire next year, the following year, or maybe 5 years. So we've got those plans in place. I think also it's important to kind of offset the risk of an unexpected retirement is making sure, again, you have the appropriate types of insurances in place. Kind of depends on what causes you to have to retire early. Is it an extended care or a long-term care, medical illness or health care, something like that, where maybe a disability policy, if we had that in place in advance, especially for our younger listeners, that might help to kind of buy you some time to recover and maybe get back into the workforce? Or is it something more debilitating, more chronic, where we're in a long-term care situation where we need some income coming in and we're forced to start hitting some of our retirement accounts prematurely? So again, there's a number of things that could happen that would cause our clients to have to consider unexpected retirement. The biggest takeaway that I have is frequently meeting with advisors and getting a consultation about what it looks like if that happens, so that the earlier we know, the more plans we can make and to make sure that the impact is less severe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big number when you look at it. Again, that recent survey found that about 48% of today's retirees have encountered disruptions that they weren't planning for. So that's a pretty big number. And, what I have seen is a lot of times those folks come into our office and they want to know, do I have enough? Am I okay? I really haven't put much thought into this, but unfortunately, I just lost my job. Or as you talk about, they maybe have some health challenges that have put them in a situation where, they just can't, continue to go on for another 3 or 5 or 10 years doing the same thing that they're doing. That's what I would tell you. Even if life is good right now, if your thought process is your retirement is less than 10 years away and you haven't looked at a plan, I'd say come in. We'll sit down. We can run the Monte Carlo analysis for you. We can show you what your plan looks like if everything continues on exactly the way that you want it to be, and you make it to that retirement age that you always thought of. But we can also move the needle and show you, how to get prepared ahead of time if, heaven forbid, something happens unexpectedly. That's exactly what we do. And then we can give you some strategies to give you better peace of mind to know that you're prepared and ready to go.
I think I could speak on behalf of Nolan and Chaz and probably the entire team at America's Retirement Headquarters. We genuinely hope each and every listener and viewer out there, they get to work exactly as long as they want to, truly. But the reality is, well, we know that's not going to be the case. 48%, it was right there in the survey. Maybe it's health, yours or another loved one's. Maybe it's budget cuts. Maybe it's the other way around and you have to work longer. It is important as you get into that retirement red zone, 5 years out, 10 years out, that you have, as Chaz and Nolan have said here, you have that contingency plan, the just-in-case thing that hopefully you never have to use, but if that situation is put upon you, you'll feel much better for it. Get started. Start putting that plan in place, 419-794-3030, or go to the website, arhq.com. And as I said at the beginning of the show, and I'm going to say it again because really do mean it, we appreciate you joining us here on America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys formula and America's Medicare Associates. Please have a great week ahead of you. Be safe out there. Try and stay cool if you can. Guys, as always, grateful for the time. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with the final word.
Yeah, great to be here with Indiana Jones. It's the new movie's out. I haven't seen it yet, but I thought today ended on a quote from Indiana Jones. It's not the years, honey. It's the mileage. Have a great week. We'll see you all same time, same channel right here on Toledo's largest talk station, 1370 WSPD. We are America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys formula and America's Medicare Associates.